Are you hearing this fun?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second broadcast of our online program, OECS Pearl Talks, where tonight we are having a discussion on special education and special education needs sensitization. And this awareness is in collaboration with the OECS Pearl, which is the OECS program for education advancement and relevant learning. My name is Marita Hyacinth, Senior Programs Officer in the Ministry of Education, and my co-host this evening is Mr. Raymond Henderson, Chief Editor in the Ministry of Education. This evening, we have a qualified slate of women to give us some information on the topic, and my co-host will introduce the panelists and give a background to the week, the Special Education Week.
Okay, thank you very much, Merita Hyacinth, and good evening to the rest of the panelists. Um, well, as you have heard by now, the Dominica joins the rest of the OECS to promote special education needs with a month of activities in collaboration with OECS Program for Educational Advancement and Relevant Learning Program, PEARL. Now, here in Dominica, the ministry, through its special education department, started um, observing the month under the theme Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges, and Empowering Every Learner. And this is part of a continued sensitization program for the local media, and it's well on its way right now. The sensitization month of activities commenced today, the 15th of April, and will continue till the 30th. So this morning was the official launching ceremony. And now, this evening, we're having item number two, a panel discussion, Understanding Special Needs. It's part of OASIS Pearl Talks, as is rightly said. Now, the panelists for this evening, officers of the Special Education Department. And first we have Mrs. Octavia Timothy, Coordinator, Special Education Department since 2013, specializing in speech and language, hearing impairment, and educational management. And we have also Ms. Nutris Francis, who is Special Education Officer since 2013, specializing in advanced practices of special education, teacher training in special education, and skill in educational assessment. And of course, we have Ms. Naomi Abraham, Special Education Officer since 2012, qualified in behavioral science, working with children with special needs, particularly autism. All right, so there are a number of other activities. We will get into them a little later on. But for now, my co-host, Ms. Hyacinth, and I will attempt to steer the discussion and entertain our very talented panelists with questions that the audience would love to hear responses to. So back to you, Merita, for the first set of questions.
Okay, thank you, Raymond. So, as my co host indicated, this discussion will provide a comprehensive overview on the state and the future of special education in Dominica. And it will address the different types of disabilities present at the schools, the diagnostic process for students with special needs, and the support mechanisms for the teachers and parents. We'll also try to outline the services offered by our special education unit, the current initiatives aimed at enhancing these services and the specialized training for our teachers, and a strategic plan which is intended to advance the special education within Dominica and also in the region. So our main aim there is to bring out the topic of the special education and let us, the public, to know how we are ensuring that every learner needs are met effectively. So without further ado, I'll go straight into our discussion, and I will begin with Mrs. Timothy. So Mrs. Timothy, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Marita. I'm fine. and I'm happy to be here to share with the general public our ideas, knowledge on special education, and hoping that in the end we would have created with a greater awareness to the general public.
Okay, thank you. So, Mrs. Timothy, could you give us an overview of special education, that is the current state in Dominica?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to start with the special education unit. What is the special education unit? Who is involved in the special education unit? Because, we have had people who have said that they were not aware that there's a special education unit within the Ministry of Education. And so tonight I want to start off by saying there is a special ed unit within the Ministry of Education. And in the special ed unit, we have, I serve as the coordinator for special education, as Mr. Henderson has just said. I have Miss Nutris Francis, who works with me in the special education unit. She specializes in assessment and everything else that has to do with special ed because she has her master's in special education. We have stationed on the north, Miss Naomi Abraham, who is also on the panel tonight, and she works with schools in the north. Presently, we also have Miss Gillian John Hope. She works on the NEP program, but she works with the special ed unit and she is involved with four of our schools on the east. I'm always puzzled whether it's the northeast or the southeast, but it's Grand Fond, La Plaine, Dalis, and Montjean. So she works with those schools. And in addition to that, at some of our schools, we also have support teachers for some of our students with special needs. So we have there's a child who is hearing impaired, who is deaf, who has been supported at one of our high schools. Actually, there are two of them. One is at Clearchild Secondary and one is at Catibus Secondary, and they have been supported by a teacher there. And we also have there's a special classroom at the Roseau Primary School. So at the Roseau Primary School, we have a class that is dedicated specifically to children with special needs, and we have a population of about 10 students within that classroom. And that is usually the maximum that we ask for in a classroom. Now, within the special ed unit, we support the teachers at the both primary and secondary level. We also carry out educational assessments. We also do speech assessments. And basically, we supervise everything that has to do with special education in Dominica. I'm not sure if my colleagues have anything else to add to that.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Timothy. Um, I could ask Miss Nutris, um, if you could tell us what type of disabilities are evident in our schools and what are the processes involved in diagnosing of a student.
Um, Currently, we do not have the ideal system for diagnosing children in dementia, unfortunately, but it's at least somewhere special ed used to be to where it is now. It's making strides.
You could try
Uh,
putting the mic closer so we could hear.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I said currently we do not have the ideal situation for diagnosing children with disabilities in Dominica. We do have a few technical specialized people, sorry, who can provide these services, but not they are not within the units. However, from the assessments we are doing, most of the children that are coming up, most of them are showing signs of learning disabilities. So you can see a lot of the children are having difficulties with learning to read, with math, and learning to read is the foundation, is the nucleus of achieving in school. If you're unable to read, then you're unable to understand information, and as such, you're unable to do most of the written work, which in our system requires a lot of comprehension and reading. Currently, what we offer once a child is a teacher recognizes or a parent recognizes that a child has difficulties learning concepts that a typical child should be learning, they're normally they call the office, but we are currently well, we have done a pilot with that program with the peripheral system that we want to launch into all the schools. And this is a system where the teacher would recognize that the child has an issue or having some difficulties. They would address the issue in school together with a team. They would form a team and they would provide support, either accommodation or using extra strategies and so to help that child. We also provided them with a text that they can use. It's called the peripheral manual, and that text will help the teachers with ideas and strategies for addressing a lot of the problems that you would typically see in schools with reading, writing, behavior. Um, it's a long list. It's like a Bible. And so the teachers use that. And if that doesn't work, they can, again, we encourage them to reconvene again to discuss the issue. Sometimes it might be something that they are not doing, or they may try a different strategy. So it's the way the system works is that they would need to address the issue at least twice. And then they would refer that child to special ed, where we would use standardized assessments to assess the child. So currently we are using a lot of educational assessments, which is what I'm trained in. So we have assessment to assess children's reading level, math level, receptive, expressive, basic skills, readiness skills. For the children from the pre-kindergarten, that is preschool, we are getting a lot of these cases are coming up now for these children. We are supporting the preschool teachers. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you
You're
did
welcome.
actually knock.
I wanted to add, sorry,
Yeah.
Marita, I wanted to add the beginning question and what are some of the disabilities that we see existing in the schools. And Miss Francis mentioned learning disabilities, which is one of the largest population that we have, is those with learning disabilities. But what we have been seeing on the increase is cases of autism, cases of ADHD. So these are probably the most prevalent ones that we are seeing right now, and speech and language
Right.
difficulties. We are coming across quite a few children with speech and language difficulties. And even to address the question of diagnosis, um, what we just want to encourage, because I know, there are parents out there who need answers. And yes, having a diagnosis is a good thing, because if even with a diagnosis, it probably allows you to get the proper intervention that you need. But we want to encourage the parents that even in seeking for diagnosis, that they find the correct professionals who will give them a proper diagnosis, because at the unit we do not advocate that you see a child for 1 hour and you give the child a diagnosis, especially when it comes to things like autism and ADHD, where you have to observe the children in different settings, where you have to look at, parents perception, you have to look at teachers' perceptions, you have to look at behaviors in different settings. We want to encourage parents that, in their quest for diagnosis, that they just don't accept a diagnosis that is probably given after 40 minutes. And especially for autism, we always advocate, and we are hoping that, as time goes on, this is what we will have in the Ministry of Education, that you have a team who diagnoses a child with autism. So you would have a speech and language therapist, because they do have difficulty with language. You would have a psychologist who would look at their cognitive ability and so on, probably a behavioral specialist who will look at their behavior, a doctor who will look at developmental, areas and so on. And everybody comes together, discusses it, and then gives the child a diagnosis. So we just want to, tell parents that even in their quest for diagnosis, they have to be careful who they go to, what the person tells them, and how it is done.
Nice. Interesting. And I know Nutris touched on it a bit, but I would like to know how are the teachers meeting the needs of the students with special needs, and if there are any success stories that you'd want to share with us, Naomi.
Okay, well, primarily, when teachers are teaching, there's a pretty much standard way of teaching, and sometimes it really is just about tweaking their approach. So, for example, we like to say, let's try and move away from chalk and talk. You're teaching the alphabet or phonics, and every day you drill your students on the sound and to identify the letters. But maybe that's not working for some children. So maybe it's something as simple as, okay, let me find a game to teach this skill or teach this concept, and that will be fine, and that will alleviate the challenge that the student may be having. Sometimes it might be a little bit more severe than that, and the teacher needs to rethink their approach to how they are teaching. So again, can we get kinesthetic? Can we get movement in? Can we get music in? Can we teach it in a different way? Where the challenge comes is when our teachers or our schools have tried different approaches and nothing seems to work. And that's probably where we come in. And so we would go in and do an observation, um, most likely have a discussion with the teachers, and sometimes we may want to have a discussion with the parents just to see how things are going on at home, and then we can give them strategies and recommendations that we would ask them to follow. They would be based on just a standard way of how we do things in special education. Also, as part of that, we also have been doing um, national training, which is available to all our teachers on island. And so the idea is we help us to help you. The teachers come to the training, they can get skills, concepts, get more information on special education. It's a very broad umbrella, so it's very difficult to cover every single thing. But the view is that by attending training, you can now have some skills to bring back to your school where it can be used with all the colleagues and other teachers at the school.
Okay, thank you. So I now hand over to. But before I go, you did not tell us about the success stories, though. Do you have? Can you all share anyone?
Yes, so in my district, we've had a few children. I will not name them on in this forum, but who were having some very severe challenges. But the in collaboration with the school and the teachers specifically, these children are doing much better and they are much more settled. So there are success stories for sure.
Can I add to this?
Yes.
Yes. For me, because I am one of my major roles in the ministry is conducting the assessment, writing the reports, and also providing recommendations to the teachers. And a lot of the recommendations that we would sometimes recommend is what we call high leverage practices, which basically these are the practices that you expect the teachers to ordinarily do in their classroom. And there are basic strategies as such as using direct instructions. Sometimes the teacher stands in the front of the class and she's giving instructions with no regard to who is probably paying attention. But for the child with special needs, they are having problems with focusing, with attention, and so on. So using this direct, explicit, one-on-one instruction, it makes a difference. Some of the other strategies sometimes we recommend is proximity. A simple thing as remaining close to the child so you can always redirect the child to remain focused, to learn and to understand what is being said. And using task analysis, breaking down information so they understand the step-by-step process. In terms of success stories, up to last week, a teacher called me and she was asking whether I could support the school with assessment because they wanted to assess some of the children at the school in reading to understand what level they're at, because another teacher told her how we had assessed the child and we were able to tell her what grade level the child was functioning at, and we provided some recommendations. And now the child is a reader, and so she wants me to come to the school to help. Yes,
Nice.
yes.
Yeah. Yes,
I
Mrs.
also
Timothy.
wanted to add, not making the question too long, but I
Mm-hmm.
also wanted to add that what we in our training, one of the things that we try to instill in the teachers is that when you are looking at a child with special needs, you focus on the positives instead of, so you focus on the child, what the child can do more than what the child cannot do. So you look at the positives, and if you focus on the positives and you build on that positive with the strategies that are given, then you have greater success in getting the child to where you want the child to go.
Nice. Okay, Raymond, do you have any further questions? Unmute.
Okay, here we go. All right, so that's almost like a review before we move forward. When we're looking at the unit, um, what does the support? What does the office? How does the office support? Let's look at it at the institutional level. How does the office support the school? And we'll talk about the parents later, Mrs. Timothy. If we're looking at the office vis-a-vis the school, how would you characterize that support for the special education needs? You're muted.
I could
You're
go back
muted.
to quite a bit
Yeah.
of what we have already said.
Yes.
Um, we try to visit schools as often as we can. So if we have
All
a
right.
request that a school needs assistance, we do our best to visit that school and see how can we assist them. Um, we have had school level training. So depending on the needs of that school, because it may not be something that extends to all of the school, but depending on the needs of that school, they request probably a training because of what they have noticed in their school, and we try to provide that. And one of the things that we have done, we have um, selected, and I said that this morning, well, this morning the audience is probably different, but we have selected a cohort of 72 teachers. What we tried to do is to have 2 teachers per school. We fell a little short of that, but we have 72 teachers as a cohort of teachers that we have been doing training with over the past 2 years. And so what we have established is that we have at least one teacher in every school who is exposed to some basic training in special education. And we have done a number of trainings with that specific group of teachers. And whenever we do the training, what we try to do is to share with them the information that we have done during the training so that they can go back and train the teachers at their school. And so that is one of the ways that we do provide, that is some of the ways that we do provide support for our schools.
Yeah, and the the same arrangement for parents, particularly parents with children with special needs.
Mr. Henderson, sorry, before we go on to the parents, I just wanted
Yeah,
to add to what Mrs. Timothy was
sure.
saying, especially early when she alluded to the fact that we do have an increase of children with autism on island. And in even a more practical way is that one of the things that's happened in the North District is that we've gone into schools and to do training with the staff so that they have a better awareness of what autism looks like. But on top of that, we've met the parents as well, because in the most cases, these children need a specific target. Sometimes they're academic, sometimes they're behavioral, or a mixture of that. But also, because these children are going to be in school for the next 6 years or so, it's important that the other students are aware of what autism is as well. And so one of the things we have done is gone into the schools and also done a whole school assembly so that the children are aware, the staff are aware, and so it just makes it a better and safer environment for those students.
Okay,
Can
so
um,
sure, go ahead.
I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to add just one more thing to what Mrs. Timothy and Naomi has already said. One of the other ways that we support the schools is we have in a few primary schools, we do have pull-out programs for the students, especially those having difficulty with reading. The ministry through some grants has gotten evidence-based reading programs that we have placed in schools, and we have also distributed other teaching aids and material resources that they can use for the students. So we are supporting them in every way that we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So that's the school level. The parents now, the parents definitely need some kind of help. Miss Timothy again, back to you.
Yes.
Mrs.
For the parents,
Yes.
one of the things that we ensure, because we accept referrals from parents, and what we find is many times the parents who come to us, they, which is understandable, most of them are in denial as to, that my child has a special need, and some of them do not, know how to cope. So we have become counselors to some parents. We have become counselors to them. And even after we have done assessments, one of the things that we try to ensure, even when the referral comes from the school, we try to ensure that the parents are part of the discussion. So after we have assessed the child and we see where the level that the child is at, we go to the school with the report and we ensure that we engage the parents in that discussion so that the parents are aware of where their child is. Um, we have assisted parents. We know there are parents, some children who are at Alpha Center. Some of the parents, depending on where they come from, they are not able to pay for the transportation. So we have made arrangements for some parents for transportation for their children to get to school. And we are looking forward. One of our activities for this SCN Awareness Month is a parent symposium that will be held on Friday. And so in that symposium, it will be the first of many. And so we are going to look at the psychosocial aspect of parenting a child with special needs, how you can support the parents, and also to give them strategies to cope.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's just go one more in terms of the services. Are there services that are not that obvious that you'd probably want more special education needs parents and students to access that are not being taken full advantage of now? And let's Nutris, would you want to tackle that one? You got to unmute.
Yes,
Somebody,
currently I think we are doing a good job informing both schools and parents of what we offer. So I mean we are limited that we will admit, but we provide based on the resources that are available and both human resource and technical and material resources. So I think all parents are aware of what we offer. I think most parents know where the office is situated. I think we are known in the system. Yes.
yeah, and you're taking full advantage, you would say.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the process now. And Naomi, get ready for this one. What processes are involved in referring or informing the special education office of a student who presents learning and behavioral problems? So the process, give us a, inform us a little more on what happens. How do we go about it?
Okay. So Miss Francis alluded to part of that process earlier with the pre-referral. So you are a teacher and you have a student in your class which you are a little bit concerned about. So sometimes I'll get teachers saying, Miss, I have a student in my class and they haven't learned all their alphabet or their phonemes. And I'm like, okay, what grade are you? Oh, I'm K. Okay, but it's only the third month of the school year. So, I'm not really concerned. I'm sure this student doesn't have a special a special need. Let's just go back to the drawing board and continue doing what you're doing. Or a teacher might say, Miss, I have a student and they're doing reversals. Reversals being that they mix up the letters P, B, D. I think there's another one. And I'll say, okay, but how old is this student? What grade? Oh, Miss, they're in grade 2. No, it's okay. They're still going through the process of consolidating those things. What we are looking at or what we would be expecting when a student is referred to us is that they have tried, the teacher or the school has tried every trick in the trade, all the tricks of the book, and still they feel that um, they don't feel they are reaching this particular student. This is where we would step in. And so there is a process. So the schools should be doing what they feel that they can do, and then when they feel like, okay, everything they've tried doesn't work, then that's where we step in. Ms. Francis alluded to the referral process, so then they can call us, myself if they're in the North District, and anybody else in the other district, Southwest and East, would call the office in Cornwall Street.
Okay, Mrs. Timothy, the same question. If you wanted to add anything there.
I can add something.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Nutris.
Yes. So the one of the reasons for this process is to help to empower teachers, and another reason is the most popular thing in special education right now is inclusion. And so we have regular students attending, children with special needs, sorry, attending regular classrooms, but they are receiving support either within the classroom or outside of the classroom. But for us here in Dominica, we feel if we empower, due to limited human resources, if we empower our teachers, then they will be able to address the needs of our students, because we have students who, because of the limited in terms of limited um, resources in terms of placement for children with special needs, they must stay within the school where they are at. For example, if we have a child in the north from futures and that child, after we assess the child, recognize that the child will probably be best suited for outer center, but it's not practical because of the distance. And so the peripheral process, one, it's to help the children, most importantly, and also to empower teachers, and even within the school setting, to develop and cultivate that culture of professional learning communities, because our teachers have quite a lot of talents that they are afraid of. And also, um, I think we have not gotten to that part. I might be jumping the gun, but one of the things that we also tell teachers is even after an assessment or a diagnosis, it still comes back down to teaching that child. You must teach. Okay? Yes.
Okay.
Just to emphasize, because Miss Francis spoke about it already, but just to emphasize, because sometimes the teachers may be here in the peripheral process and some of them, but we have already done training on that with both the principals and the teachers. And so we just want to encourage them that this big red book, I'm going to use the term that Miss Francis used, it's like a Bible. It has strategies for almost every challenge that you can find within the classroom setting. And so we're encouraging them to use that book. So it's not supposed to be a book that is sitting on just on the principal's desk. It is going to help them a lot and support them a lot if they go, they look at the challenge that the child has and they look at the strategies that are presented. And the strategies that are presented, they are not outlandish. They are not anything that is, so out of the teacher's purview, so to speak, but it is within their capacity. And so we're encouraging them to use that manual to assist them within the classroom.
That manual brings on my curiosity. Just give some more information.
Yes,
How would we get?
a
Yeah, how
copy
did we
of
get
it.
to? Yeah, well, a little more. You're muted, but
Every school has a copy of that book, and I want to emphasize that we got it through the OECS. So it's not the present project, it's not under the Pearl project, but we got it under the ARP, the OECS ARP Academic Recovery Program. And so all 58 schools within the country have one of the manuals. Every school. And I
okay.
know, we may have new teachers who have come in, and so we want to encourage those who are there before and they know about it to encourage the new teachers to use it.
Okay, and what's the advantage of that manual at the moment?
It provides hands-on strategies that the teachers can use, and it's for reading difficulty, math difficulty, communication difficulty, behavior. It's a whole Bible that you
Comprehensive.
can use, right, to assist within the classroom setting. And I know sometimes it's difficult for the teachers because, you may have, although our school population is small now, especially for the schools in the different districts. And so if you have a class of 10 children, you may find it difficult. You have a child with a special need. But if you just take just the extra time to look at what the child is experiencing, the difficulty that the child is experiencing, use that manual to guide you. And even as we said before, in terms of the whole peripheral process, if you try one strategy and that strategy doesn't work, you try another strategy. And we always encourage teachers that a strategy is not going to work one time. So you're not just going to use it today and say, I tried it and it didn't work. It has to be consistent. You will use it for about a month, you do it for about 6 to 8 weeks to see whether there is a difference. So sometimes the teachers do say, we tried it and it didn't work, but you have to look at the duration. How long did you try it for? Okay, and that is important.
Okay, thank you. So you've mentioned this one initiative, ARP Bible, the Red Book. And so now you're involved with the Pearl project. So that there are initiatives going on there that would speak to special education needs at the moment. You can start, Mrs. Timothy, and I'll go around with the other panelists on that.
Yes,
Initiatives.
definitely. And we appreciate that the Pearl project considered special education as a component. Um, there's an ECE-SEN component of the Pearl project. And under that project, there was a survey done. Firstly, it started off with a special needs survey that was done about 2 years ago. And from that survey, there were recommendations made to the OECS countries, and we have looked at those recommendations. The OECS has looked at those recommendations and have put things in place. So after that survey, we had one of the things that was recommended is providing assistive devices for the children with special needs. Some of them, it may be communication difficulty and they need an assistive device to help them. We know we have one blind student who would definitely need an assistive device. So the Pearl project provided training for 3 officers in assistive devices, and the intention is that we would go on to train the teachers so that they can support the students in the use of those devices. And so presently, these devices are being procured under the Pearl project, and so we are waiting excitedly for those devices. Another recommendation was to increase the number of diagnostic tools that we use. So we do have some that we use for assessments right now, but we are also getting some more under the Pearl project. So again, the procurement process for the diagnostic tools has started, and we are awaiting that under the Pearl project. There is also training that will be coming up soon for special ed, for teachers in special educational needs under that Pearl project. And we are looking forward to all of.
Okay, there's a lot going on there, isn't there? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, let's we've looked a lot at the structures and the services and going on. I want to ask about the population going down, but you've mentioned some of the special needs going up, different areas. Would you want to speak to this a bit? Why are we having more autism, and you've just said that the population is going down? If we could probably just mention it briefly, if that's okay. Mrs. Timothy, we'll start with you, and then we'll take the others. I've got you.
Mr. Anderson, we cannot really go into the science of why there is an increase, because I think the increase is not only in Dominica. I think it's something that is being seen globally, that there is an increase with children with autism and ADHD. As to the scientific reason why, we are not sure. But looking at the referrals that we get in the office, we know definitely that we do have an increase in the number of children with these special needs. And as to the exact reason why, we cannot say.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead, Miss.
I have a question. As you said that there, so is there any plans or in the future to actually even try to conduct some sort of research? I realize that you have some level of data, but would you be thinking of doing some level of research that could maybe answer such a question?
Can I just add, firstly, nobody knows exactly what and why children exhibit these behaviors, the children who are autistic. So it is kind of difficult to understand why it is happening if we don't even understand what is causing it. There's a lot of science and research in terms of the brain, and they have come up with I remember there was this research that had come out, and he said it was because of a vaccine. They have actually banned this man from writing any research documents. I know some people are still hanging on to it, but it was not factual. So it's still being researched, but they know it's definitely there's a pattern in terms of the brain, the functioning of the brain, and the structure and physiological structure of the brain with children with autism. But there is no definite, like, yes, we know this is contributing to autism. So what we can probably do is to understand how prevalent the cases are. It would not be unique to Dominica because it's happening across the world, that they are seeing an increase in terms of children with autism. Yes.
Okay, so you're testing more and you're testing better, so that you're going to get more cases. Is that a better way of putting it?
That could be the case, and also that we do have an increase in cases. But as to whether it is physiological, or if it's something at birth, or if it's something that the mother is taking, or if it's a gene, there is no. I mean, there's a lot of research. There's research on the gene, on the brain, and a lot of things. Yes, but no concrete finding as it.
Okay, well.
Also, I'd like to also add to that. is that autism is more, there's a better awareness now of it. So maybe if you had a child 20, 30, 40 years ago with autism, that child would be labeled as being crazy or having some kind of mental health issue. And I'll give an example. Well, this is something that happened while I was in the UK. There was this teenager, quite tall and strapping. He had been playing with the younger kids in church one evening, and I think one of them took his toy or something. He had a complete meltdown, screaming and shouting the place down. And it took two strapping men to literally restrain him. And this young girl who was sitting next to me, and I've known her since she was a child, and she said, oh my God, we need to pray, we need to pray. And I'm like, yeah, okay. He's demon possessed, he's demon possessed. And I'm like, no, he's not demon possessed, he's just having a meltdown. No, no, no. She was insistent that it was demon possession. I said, listen, let me tell you something. This is something I see all the time in my practice. I work with children with autism, and the child was having a meltdown. And she wouldn't believe me. So I told her, go on YouTube, type in meltdowns, autism. And when you've done that, you and I can have a conversation. And then a few weeks later, when we met, she said, oh, thank you, Naomi, for telling me that, because honestly, I just felt that this child was demon possessed. So I think now that we have a better awareness of autism, people are not jumping to, demon possession or mental health and all these other labels, which are not necessary.
Okay, so Mrs. Timothy.
Yes, and Marita did ask about the research, doing research on the was it the causes, Marita?
Yeah, and more in a local context, a research that is geared towards Dominica.
I think that too, in terms of causes, I think it would probably go beyond Dominica, to be honest.
Okay.
If it's a research as to prevalence and um, maybe prevalence, maybe to look at their background and health and that kind of thing, maybe it can be done. But in terms of a research for causes, and I think it would go beyond that, because scientists are looking all into genetics and everything, and some of them are saying, well, it's a gene that's missing, or there's a some gene that is defective. So it would go beyond Dominica. Maybe our research would probably have to do with prevalence.
Okay, so we type is passing by as we go quickly, through the topic. But we've been talking about heavy stuff, on a lighter note, a typical day in a special education center. What's it like? Tell us, Nutris, what's it like? A typical day, going through one of those centers,
Oh, you're referring to the school.
schools,
Oh, okay.
classes.
All right. So it starts with the usual morning greeting. And more like for Alpha Center, for example, a lot of the students, they have speech problems. So most of them are intellectually disabled, what we call ID. And children who are diagnosed with intellectual disability, they would normally have an IQ below 70. So a normal IQ for average people is between 90 to 100, but once you get that diagnosis, which is most of the cases we have at the Alpha Center, and they might have more than one disability, but most of them would be cognitively slow. It starts with morning greeting and encouraging a lot of speech. You need to understand what happened to them at home. So, so it starts with, it's all about the child. It's adaptive learning, like if I may say so. Yes, it's adaptive learning at the school. Everything is centered around the child's needs, their strength, and their interests. Currently, I'm working with the Alpha Center. We are revising and formulating IEPs for some of the students who do not have. And again, we are going through that process, identifying strengths, weaknesses, and then identifying which area you need to work on. For these children, they normally have core adaptive skills, core social skills, so you have to teach them all of these behaviors. So a typical day, like for example, my favorite class in there, that's the middle-aged children. It starts with morning greeting, days of the week. You go through the same thing. You have a lot of repetition. and they're spelling their name and you know, these kinds of activities. Then there's literacy, numeracy. So they are doing all of those skills, but they are doing it at their pace, and they are doing it in a functional way. So these are skills that they can use to function as adults. So they're
So
not doing no geometry and algebra and none of that.
so Naomi, you would encourage others to join in that fun Nutris just spoke about.
Yes, I mean, the best way to engage our children with special educational needs is to do it in a creative and fun way. They think they're playing games, which they are, but they are also learning, and the more you repeat, the more consolidated those skills become.
Okay, and Mrs. Timothy, we're getting better at it. If you could unmute, Mrs. Timothy, unmute. Are we getting better at it? Bringing the best of the special needs children?
Yes, we are. And we work very closely with our special schools to ensure that they give the children the best that they need. As Miss Francis said, she's working now with Alpha Center on the IEPs, and we are hoping we can extend that also to Isulukati, that is a special needs school in the Carib territory. We are also looking at extending that service to them so that they too can look at their children, look at their strengths and weaknesses, and also come up with IEPs for them. And yes, the children, you know, you just have to teach them in a fun and engaging way, with lots of repetition. And yeah, so we support the schools as best as we can.
Okay, and looking to the future now, any future plans for the special ed? We'll do a around the table on this one because we're coming close to the end of an exciting program.
Okay. Yes, we do have future plans, and we are hoping that with those future plans, special education will be enhanced. The services that are provided will be enhanced. And yeah, we are already waiting on what the OECS Pearl is delivering. Our education sector plan also focuses, and the education sector plan is up to 2030, from now to 2030. And in the education sector plan, we are also focusing on special education, and that has to do with policy development, which we know is very important. If we have policy, it will definitely guide what happens with the children in special ed. We are looking at increased human capacity. We are looking at training for teachers. So there are a number of things that we are focusing on in the sector plan, even the getting more assistive devices as we look at the children that we have. We have started a database to make it easier for us to have numbers, although we said diagnosis is limited at this time because, you know, you need more people for diagnosis, but there are those that you can definitely see from the characteristics. And so we have started a database, and we want to continue that database.
Okay, we've lost Miss Timothy.
Yes, but I can
Yeah,
add.
go ahead. Your final comments, Miss Nutris.
Yeah, I wanted to add future plans. I would like to see established collaboration between the special education unit, Ministry of Education, with Ministry of Health, because we need to capture the children early for early intervention and to understand, you know, in terms of prevalence and numbers. So when we are discussing what resources, what human in terms of building human capacity to address all of the challenges within the school that we know, and we have correct and real-time data as well as much as possible, and also collaboration with Ministry of I think it's labor. I'm sure no, I think it's labor, but anyway, the ministry responsible for employment, because remember, special ed children do not stay little for the rest of their lives. And so when they become young adults, teenagers, that we can prepare transitional plan and start thinking about how we can make these people with these students, well, young people with special needs, functional and independent in society. So these are the two areas I feel going into the future that I would like to see more established and written on paper. And it
Yeah.
continues after me and after all of us when we leave the unit. That we see
Okay.
human first and we help everybody succeed.
And Naomi, your last words before?
Yes, I mean, in the future, I would love to see a skills curriculum for our special educational students. They can reach a plateau cognitively or intellectually, which means that the emphasis then should be to teach them functional skills. So things as simple as going to the shop to buy a bread and a cheese and come back home with it, or to be able to wash and iron their clothing. So simple functional skills that will help them to be a little less vulnerable and a little bit more independent. That is something that I would like to see in the future as well for them.
Well, thank you very much. I've seen Miss Timothy has got back in, but Marita is back to you now for wrapping up at this time.
Thank you, Raymond. And it was indeed an exciting and informative session. And I would like to thank all of our participants this evening for coming out this evening, for letting the persons know about the state and the future of special education in Dominica. And I like that note that you ended with, Raymond, as to what they want to see in the future. And all of them, all of the theme that each one of the persons were saying, or participants were saying, is that they want to see like a classroom that is fully integrated and everybody is actually participant and all can be part of the learning process. And I like that, and that is a future that I want to buy into. I'm also sold on the idea that even if Mrs. Timothy did explain that it would be something that would be a broad um, study to do. I'm a person of research, and I think that maybe we can actually do something on a local context as to find out, because I mean that question as to, yes, we have a drop in population, but yet we have a rise in the number of persons diagnosed with autism. So that's something that in a local context maybe we can look at that to see what is that in within Dominica spectrum. So I really appreciated this discussion tonight. And I know there are folks online, and there was a question online who the person wanted to know how many, let me get it. I think the person wanted to know how many persons who are trained, how many teachers who are actually trained. I think that's what they were asking. Do we have an answer for that?
It says how often the special ed teachers get
Yes,
trained.
it's how often, yes. How often, yeah, how often special education teachers get trained, yeah.
Um, my mic is on mute, so I can go ahead. It's still not your name, we can probably add after. But when we plan, because we plan for each term, uh, we try to put include of dates, at least 3 trainings for our teachers within each term. So we based on the our observations, because we go into the schools and the feedback that we receive from the teachers, then we formulate presentations and training based on it. I know last year Mrs. Timothy had there was a fiscal working with the office who is a teacher trainer. So she's trained to train teachers, and I know they did a series of trainings with the teachers, 72 teachers I think they were targeting. So but I know when we're planning, we try to split at least 3 trainings per term, the teachers can get information.
Thank you. Okay,
Okay,
so
just a point of correction, 3 trainings for you, one every term. Yes.
okay. So once again, Nutrice, Mrs. Timothy and Naomi, thank you for coming on this evening. To my co-host, thank you for supporting me. And again, to those who are listening, I'm sure you were engaged in this remarkable discussion. And then as we ended on that note, we want to see that all of our students thrive in their education journey, not just some, but thank you again for joining this insightful discussion on special education in Dominica. And this is done in collaboration with the OECS Pearl program. And we always want you to know that the Pearl means the Program for Education and Advancement for Relevant Learning. And we are taking significant steps towards enhancing and supporting every single opportunity for learners to learn in a comfortable environment. So I want us to continue to collaborate and be innovative as we strive to have a more inclusive and empowered future for our students. So once again, good evening everyone, and thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.